Hi, this is Debbie. Welcome back to Cheyenne, Wyoming, Urban Gardener. And I did it again without hesitating that time. Of course, you don't know how many times I'm actually saying it before I turned the camera on. But anyway, this is the little spot that I had replanted some radish seeds just a couple of days ago. And look at that. This is like basically 3 days, and they're up. In fact, they're coming up anyway. You can see all those little seedlings in there. So that's all the time that it takes for radishes to come up. And I actually did some seed ordering last night of some seeds I didn't have. I want to try some new things next season coming up. And one of the things I did order was some daikon radish. I have not grown daikon radishes before, and I'm not sure if they will grow in this climate because they have kind of a long growing period, about 60 to 80 days. But I'm going to try them next year. Probably not very many. I'll probably just try like maybe 20 or so just to see how they do. But wanted to give you a little update on the garden, how it's going, because it has been a few days and a lot can change when you're in August in a few days here in this garden. So wanted to show you everything going on there. We're getting some heading going on the cherry giant radishes, and if you remember, I only planted those about 3 weeks ago. So here we go. See all of those little heads coming on in there. These are going to be the cherry giants, so they take a little bit longer to get to a good size than some of the other radishes because they are so big. We've got the German giant, we got the crimson giant in here, and they're coming along. Some of them still have not made heads yet, and sometimes that happens. Even if you've got them spaced out, which I do, as you see here, I don't have to do any thinning this time because they're all nice and spaced out the way they should be. And of course those are coming along, and those will probably get ready before these do, honestly, because they are a different variety of radishes. They were a rainbow blend of radishes, or Easter egg basket as they call it. So we've got some whites and some reds and some pinks and some purples all going on in that same one. So we should see that once they get ready, and they probably will be ready at the beginning of September. Maybe even sooner. Sometimes it only takes about 21 days, but we'll find out. Most of the time it takes me a little bit longer here in Cheyenne. And I wanted to show you an update on the beets. Remember, I was a little bit worried about the beets because we had some leaves that had turned brown. Well, that mostly has gone. You still got a little bit right here, and these are from the old ones. But we have the new growth that came on. As you can see here, all of this new growth doing great. And we actually have beet heads, surprisingly. So I'm going to have some good sized beets. Let me see if I can show you one of them down in here. Take a look at that. See that big, nice beet down in there? And most of them have some big heads like that on them. I've got them spaced out pretty well. As you probably don't know with beets, if you plant one beet seed, you usually have 3 to 4 plants come up out of that one beet seed, because it's actually a group of seeds. It's in this little hard container, basically, and you usually have 3 to 4 come up in the same spot. You don't have to thin them out. A lot of people do. You can make the heads a little bit bigger if you do that, but I do have a few in here, if I can show you, that have the 3 and 4, as you can see here, and they have some nice heads on them. Oh, I don't know if you can see that one. I've got a weed in there I need to pull out. So let's go ahead and do that while I'm seeing it. So that goes out of there. There you go. So that is a group of 3 right there. And they do have heads on them. Not quite as big as the other ones, but they're coming along. And you can see another nice beet head right there. And that one does have a group of 3 as well, so it is as big as the other one, which only has 1. And then we've got some beets along this edge as well. And I think I do have, I have one down in here that is heading up as well, as you can see right here. And we have been thinning out more of the kale because the kale was just getting so unruly. and big. Threw out some bread to the birds. But you can see this kale is quite big. It was just kind of smothering out everything, so we did thin that out, and I did cook the greens down. And I thought I was going to be able to can the greens, but everybody wanted to eat them. So we did go ahead and eat those. And then here are the kohlrabi, which are getting a lot bigger now since I have thinned them. And they are starting to make some heads. You can see that right there. That will turn into a nice big kohlrabi head. And here's an update on the pumpkin. The pumpkin is getting a lot bigger. You can see it now without having to pull back the leaves because it has gotten so big. Now it's not going to get super huge because this is Cheyenne, but I did have to prop it up on 2 bricks because, as you know, it was up on the cement curb, and the cement curb wasn't going to be able to hold it. So I went ahead and got it propped up with a couple of bricks. Worked out pretty nice, and it is definitely beginning to fill out. If you remember, it was a kind of elongated before, and not so much anymore. It's filling out all over, and as you can see, it has a nice size to it. Nice big pumpkin. And sorry about that strap being in the way. I have a strap on my phone. I always use my phone for filming because I don't really have a digital camera. I haven't had one in years. So I did explain that on the live that I did the other day, and I did attempt to do a second live, but I think it was just the wrong day to actually do it because I don't think anyone really showed up for it. I saw a couple of people popping in and out, but no one that really stayed. So I was like, well, it's probably the wrong day for it, so I think I'll do that on the weekends. So anyway, nice big pumpkin, and it does have another one set on it. Let me show you that. It's still really small, and it probably will end up being smaller than the other pumpkin. And there it is, and it may actually die off because I'm looking at it now on the camera. It does look a little bit yellowed, so it may die off, and probably another one will take its place. I think there's another one already on here, but we do have a group of 3 jack-o'-lantern plants, 4 actually, I think, right here in the front. It's either 3 or 4. I've forgotten at this point because they've gotten so big. So we've got some more coming on, and they have already set their little pumpkins as well. There's one right there. And they probably will not be as big as that first one because these plants are not quite as big, and we are getting toward the end of the season. So they're just going to try to throw out a pumpkin to get to the point of having seeds, because that's the whole point of these plants, is to try to have something that will go to seed. So anyway, probably won't be as large, but they'll still will be a nice size that we can use. And I'll probably use those for the pies and use that big one for the jack-o'-lantern. The rhubarb. In the last few days, the smaller plant has turned into being just as big as the larger one, just a little bit shorter, as you can see here, and have been absolutely just putting on a massive amount of growth. The leaves that were already here have gotten way bigger, and I'm getting a whole lot of stalks down in there. So massive amount of growth for these to be basically a 1-year-old rhubarb, as you can see there. And I do have 3 of those plants, 2 here, and then I have one over in a smaller little strip of dirt that I have along the fence, and they're all just massive now. So quite pleased with that. Doing very well. And then I have some butternut, if you remember, a little further out from the rhubarb, right here, and they are blooming, and they do have little butternut on them. This one for some reason is not putting on any runners. It's blooming in place. And it is a butternut. I've seen the little butternut on it. I think this one might be a bush variety. Now remember, I did pull these butternut squash seeds out of a butternut squash that I had from the store, so I guess they could be a mixture of bush butternut and also vining butternut, because there's one here this one that is vining, and the other two are looking like bush varieties. So I guess they use a combination of those and maybe whatever farm that they came from. And this one was an organic butternut squash, so there were no pesticides or anything used. So I'm looking forward to seeing what we get out of these. But anyway, that's an update on those. And now we're on the north side of the house where I had gotten that zucchini that I showed everyone in a video just the other day. And it's still blooming and still lots of stuff going on down in that zucchini plant. It's becoming quite massive at this point. There's actually two in here. The other one is coming along, but it's pretty much being crowded out by the larger one. So I may just go ahead and pull it. And then we have a smaller one that is over here. And originally I had planted jack-o'-lantern seeds. These are ones that I had gotten from Baker's Creek, and they're turning out to both be zucchini. So I think they mixed up on that package. So anyway, that's the first time it's ever happened. I've ordered other things from Baker's Creek before, so a little bit different there. And let me see if I can show you an update on the strawberries. They're blooming like crazy, but I'm not getting a whole lot of action as far as berries go. So I think it's just because perhaps the strawberry were so damaged from the hail, and then they had to come back out, and then they received a lot of damage from the squirrels, and then we finally put this cage on them, and now they're coming back out and blooming. So maybe we'll get some more strawberries off of them before end of season, but I'm seriously doubting it at this point. And then again, I'm going to have to, because these did not overwinter last year, I will have to dig the roots up or put this in the garage or something to overwinter. So we'll see what happens with those. All right, now we're back around the front of the house, and I'm looking at the rutabaga. You know, we have the beets here. We've got the carrots over there. And by the way, I have some really large carrots in there, and I'm wanting to see how big they will actually get before they start becoming too fringed with roots. I don't like when that happens, so I'll pull them before that happens. But getting some really large carrots in there. I just want to see how big they will get before they start doing that. And then we've got the cabbages, as you remember, along the edge there. They are beginning to make heads. And we've got a couple in the back. And then we have a few more along the very back next to the house. I did pull a cabbage this morning. Very nice head of cabbage. I'll show you that when I go inside. But anyway, just looking at these rutabaga, I'm not really sure they're going to be able to pull it out by the end of the season, because they've got a lot of growth they would have to do. And I think what it was is that they were just, because I had to replant them after the hailstorm, they did not have enough time, because rutabagas take a very long time to make a nice large head. I do have one plant that looks like that it might do something, or it may already have a head. But I think one of the key things with rutabaga, which I had only tried to grow them this year, I've never grown them in the past, is that you need to plant them. And then one of the things I noticed how this one got much different was that I actually buried the root a little bit deeper. Put some more dirt up around the root, because if you notice, when they come up and you plant them by the guidelines of being a ½ inch down, you have this long taproot that kind of curls out of the ground. And I think that it would do better if you just cover that taproot up. And these are just, at this point, are probably too stunted or twisted in order to do that. But I may try to go ahead and pull some of the dirt up around that base. But I think what you need to do is just plant them, wait till they come up, and then maybe transplant and move them around so they have a little bit more ability to grow. Or I'm just going to maybe plant less next year and further apart, because they are quite a large seed in comparison to, say, radish seed or something like that. So I think that's what I'll attempt next season. Like, again, this is the first season that I had tried these. And you can eat the tops on the rutabaga, so I may just eat the tops on those and cook them down like I would any other green, so they won't go to waste. But I just don't think they're going to make the heads that they're supposed to make. Or maybe they're supposed to go into second season. I'm going to have to do some more research on them to make those heads. But I just don't think they're going to catch up at this point. And then we've got that second run of beets that I had planted, and I think that they will catch up by the end of season, because these are frost hardy, so they will go a little bit past the frost, which usually happens here in about mid-September if we're lucky. So I hope that they will come along. They seem to be really putting on their leaves now and getting a lot larger from what they were. So, and I do think I see a head on one of those. So I do think that these will pull out. These were the bigger ones and do have heads on them that I showed you just a moment ago. So they should do something. And the second run of broccoli, the ones that I had transplanted from the back up to the front, are just by leaps and bounds growing like crazy. As you can see, they're almost as tall as these sunflower seeds that I had, sunflowers that I had planted on a second run, and doing quite well. The leaves are getting much bigger, and they will probably start making heads pretty soon. And I do have a couple more heads of broccoli back there that are coming along quite nice. I did trim up a lot of the cauliflower recently. I don't think they're going to make heads. At this point, it's getting really late. I will leave them until all the way to the end, but I just don't think that they're going to be able to have enough time to get their cauliflower heads going. They keep looking like they want to do something, but then they're not. And I just think they got too damaged from the hailstorm, because a lot of them had the tops broken out of them and then had to make another top. And if they don't end up doing anything, then the remaining leaves that I have, I will probably just go ahead and cook those down like I would any other green. And so the leaves will not go to waste. I just hate that we did not have any cauliflower heads on them. Now, I probably will have one cauliflower, because I did plant my own seed called snowball cauliflower. And that one is this one right here. And it is starting to make a head on it. So we'll see what that one does. Hopefully it will. But it was a very, very young plant. And it is really beginning to come on a lot nicer than it was. So we shall see. And then we've got that extra broccoli right here. I am getting tons and tons and tons of squash now. I've got acorn squash everywhere. Now these here were the white acorn squash. They're a lot younger, so they do not have any acorn squash on them yet, but they are beginning to start their little precursor squash here on the end. You can see that there. And it doesn't take them very long once they do that, and they'll bloom and then get pollinated. And these are the cocozelle squash in the back. I have not had any cross-pollination, which is great. And they are coming along with some really nice cocozelle squash in there. This plant right here in the back is just massive now. So looking forward to seeing some more cocozelle squash come out. As you can see, my parsley did just fine. I did trim it back, and I had shown everyone that in a video. And it is doing quite nicely. So I didn't lose any of it from the trimming. And then you see those couple of cabbage stuck in there. And then we do have the Swiss chard. Not a whole lot of luck with the Swiss chard. I think I planted it when it was a little bit too warm. And now that it's starting to cool off a little bit, we're back down into, well, today it's supposed to be 90, but it is bouncing back and forth between low 80s to 90, with the temperatures in the evenings getting back to 58, 59 degrees, which is not good for melons, as you know. So we may not have any melons again this year. I've got cantaloupe that are set right now on the container plants, but it may have just been too late for me to do that, because we're not able to get anything out into containers or in the garden. And then we had the hailstorm, and then I had to plant again on many of those things. So we may not be having any cantaloupe, I'm hoping, because we do have some that are about fist size now. And I'll show you those in just a moment. All right, and now we're looking at past the cauliflower into the zucchini and also the yellow straight neck squash. And then we've got the peppers planted in between that I've mentioned on several videos. Still waiting on the giant Marconi because it is still green, and I'm just waiting for it to begin changing color. So there you can see it in there barely, because it's kind of getting covered up with leaves. So still waiting on it to change color. And then there's a few more that's set on that plant, and then there's plenty on these other plants. And And this is one of the pepper plants that I had out of my own seed that I had gathered from a store-bought pepper. Amazing that I'm getting peppers from it, and everyone was telling me that I wouldn't be able to. See those peppers on there? Aren't those nice? So we are definitely, and these are going to be a purple variety. I can see that now. So going to be very nice peppers that's going to come on there. And I actually have peppers set on every single plant that I have that was store-bought, except for 3 of them, I think, which are blooming, and I already pulled one off of my smaller pepper plants to eat. But anyway, these are back to the zucchini and the yellow straight neck squash. Getting loads of straight neck squash now and zucchini off of these plants. Got some really nice gray zucchini in here, and some of the black beauty and dark green zucchini. These plants are massive, beautiful, all the way to the back. So getting some really nice squash off of those. I really could, let me see if I can show you what's going on down in there. So we've got lots of blooming going on, and you can see all kinds of little squash in there. I've already pulled the larger ones off, so I don't have any of the larger ones in there, but loads and loads of squash in there. And I did pull my first harvest of peas. Beautiful, beautiful peas off of these, and have a whole nother harvest coming on right now. In fact, they were just about ready when I pulled the first, but loads and loads of peas down in there. And probably the third run I will go ahead and make peas in the shell so I can shell the peas. So just gorgeous, gorgeous plants. And these are both Alaskan snow peas, which actually do have quite large peas in the pod, and Cascadia peas, which are a dual purpose pea. So you can eat everything on the Cascadia until they get a little bit too big, and then you have to shell them. Anyway, green beans. Ate a nice big harvest of green beans yesterday. Absolutely delicious. Just put a little slice of ham in them, cooked them up wonderful, and got more green beans hanging on the plants. The long pole beans are now producing as well. They bloomed and have started setting green beans on them, and you can see the runners are just getting longer and longer. Trellis is now completely full. So I will just have to let those interweave back down onto the plants because I don't have any more room to put another trellis. 3